Good evening, everyone. Let's talk about rabbits. Okay, so a lot of people in the homesteading community around the world will actually grow rabbits for meat. Um, and that's before you think about anybody wanting to keep those cute little fluffy things for pets. So knowing what the regulations are around rabbits is really important. And I'm pretty sure everybody in Queensland knows what the regulations on rabbits are. But a lot of times when I'm in lives, I hear a lot of people talking about the restrictions on rabbits in Queensland, in Australia, and they go, oh, what the? Rabbits are illegal? So I thought I would actually do a whole video on it explaining what the deal is. So this website that I'm looking at here is actually the Lockyer Valley, which is the regional council that I'm a part of, where my property is located. And this is their whole bit on rabbits. So rabbits in the Lockyer. Rabbits are becoming an increasingly destructive pest in the Lockyer Valley. Recent surveys have shown that the spread of rabbits into the valley is worse than first thought, and their impact on horticultural crops is already affecting farmers because rabbits breed rapidly. There is a very real risk of the population of rabbits exploding with a devastating impact on the economy of the Lockyer. And the Lockyer Valley actually is like the salad bowl of Australia, really. Just skipped up a bit too far. Council works closely with the Darling Downs Moreton Rabbit Board in locating and destroying, so let's see, should search up those guys, on locating and destroying rabbits and their burrows, while providing information and advice to farmers and growers. It also chairs the Lockyer Valley Rabbit Group, which meets regularly at the Department of Primary Industries facility at Gatton. This group brings together representatives from other governments, departments, South East Queensland catchment, farmers groups and individual farmers. It also includes researchers from the University of Queensland Gatton campus, whose work is already providing a better understanding of rabbit behaviour, the economic impact, and management techniques, including effectiveness of viruses. So a reminder, just to blow the world's mind, keeping, selling or releasing rabbits without a permit in Queensland is illegal. Penalties as much as $63,075 could apply for one rabbit. Now, I'm not actually dissing this at all, because it is actually a very large problem in the Lockyer Valley. So just to put it into perspective for people. But the fact that it is possible to have a permit got my attention, and I did actually email the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries just to find out what was actually involved in getting a permit and what said permit was for. So I'll go into that later. So at the moment we've got a few more things to look at. So I've got a quick video here that the Lockyer Valley has put together on rabbits. So let's watch this, shall we? I'll leave a link to this.
Rabbits. To kids, they look like great house pets, warm, cuddly, and safe. To our local farmers, they are a major threat.
I hope you can hear this.
Rabbits are an introduced species that can cause tens of thousands of dollars of crop damage in a single night. 150 rabbits are capable of eating $1 million worth of lettuce per year.
That's a lot of lettuce.
Rabbits have been invading and established themselves within the Lockyer Valley over the last 10 years. They make their homes, known as warrens, in creek banks, under sheds and shipping containers and elsewhere. These warrens can result in destabilizing creek banks and undermining foundations, which can be expensive to repair. As you can see, a relatively small number of rabbits can do a lot of damage to vegetable crops, grazing land, recreational areas, and farming infrastructure. One infestation discovered in the Lockyer Valley was capable of producing 10,000 young rabbits in a year. So imagine how much damage they could have done if they hadn't been detected and controlled quickly. What can be done? Lockyer Valley Regional Council works in close partnership with the Darling Downs Moreton Rabbit Board to assist local landholders in controlling the region's rabbit populations. The best way to prevent the damage from occurring is to prevent rabbits from establishing and spreading. The Rabbit Board, council, local landholders and residents need to continue working together to identify and destroy breeding sites. Early reporting and action can make a big difference as rabbits breed quickly, sometimes having 5 litters in a single year. So remember, while they may look cute and cuddly to kids, rabbits are actually a major threat to our local economy and wildlife and need to be controlled. Under the Biosecurity Act 2014, it's illegal to keep a rabbit unless you have a valid permit. To lodge a report or to find more information, please contact the Rabbit Board on 4661 4722 or Council on 1300 005 872.
So that is the Lockyer
Rabbit.
Valley's video on rabbits. And again, they mentioned that permit. That got my attention. I was really wondering about this. So they've got some information sheets on the website. So I thought we could have a look at that. But before we go there, I thought we'd have a look at the Queensland website. So this is just the Lockyer Valley. So it's just the regional council for my area. Now, this is actually the website for the Queensland government. So this is a state level on its issue with rabbits. So you've got a picture of a rabbit here, an escaped pet rabbit, rabbit plague in action. And then you've got rabbits running. I'm not necessarily against rabbits. I'm just showing some information here. So, native to Europe, rabbits were brought to Australia by the first fleet as food animals, with the first feral rabbit population recorded in the late 1820s. Later releases of rabbit for sport hunting dramatically increased the size of feral rabbit populations. Today, rabbits are one of Australia's major agriculture and environmental pests, costing between 600 million and 1 billion annually. Rabbits eat pasture and crops, compete with native animals, cause soil erosion, and prevent regeneration of native vegetation. Introducing and selling rabbits in Queensland is illegal, and penalties apply. Limited numbers of permits for domestic rabbits are available from Biosecurity Queensland from research purposes, public display, magical acts, and circuses. Before a permit is granted, guidelines must be met. So yes, more on this permit business. Anyway, you can support national rabbit mapping projects by reporting a rabbit population. Rabbit is a restricted invasive animal under Biosecurity Act. If you have a pet rabbit, you can surrender it to the RSPCA or locations or the Animal Welfare League, who are permitted to rehome illegal kept rabbits interstate. So yes, so hares are a similar species, but they're not the same. Hares are not a restricted animal. So description is all that sort of stuff. And I'll leave links to this. Actually, I'll put this link in the chat and put it in the description after. The Queensland government on rabbits. And we'll look at how to distinguish hares from rabbits again later on. So their habitat, they create warrens where soil is easy to dig into, occupies tussock grasses and areas littered with fallen timber, also lives in underbuildings, old machinery and storage containers and old waste facilities. Distribution, rabbits are spread throughout Queensland with high populations in the Granite Belt and southwest, moderate population in Maroona, southern Warrego and northern Burnett, and the Atherton Tablelands and southwest and northwest Darling Downs. An isolated population in the remainder of the state. Rabbit distribution correlations with soil types, especially types suitable for burrowing. Above Tropic of Capricorn, rabbits are at the edge of their range and population generally expand and contract according to season. However, rabbit numbers are increasing in the Atherton Tableland. Rabbit numbers are dramatically declining following release of rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus, but has since increased in areas where effective follow-up measures, e.g. warren destruction, were not adequately practiced. So the life cycle, a female rabbit can have up to 5 to 6 litters in a good breeding season, producing an average of 3 to 4 kittens per litter. Litters of up to 8 kittens are possible for older females depending on food quality and quantity. Gestation is 28 to 30 days. Breeding can commence from 4 months of age. So crops affected is pasture, horticultural and forestry seedlings. Impacts environmental. It degrades the native vegetation by eating seedlings, preventing vegetation from regenerating. Degrades soil through overgrazing. Degrades water through overgrazing and secondary to soil erosion. Competes with native animals for food space. Provides food for predator species, changing the population dynamics. Affects birds, mammals and insects that rely on plants. Control measures such as warren ripping and harbour destruction can also have adverse effects on the environment. So economic contributes to the total grazing pressure on pastures, reduces the pasture production, including reserves for dry season, which also reduce livestock and wool production, reduces the quality of pasture, reduces crop production and product quality. Feral populations are expensive to control. So social, they damage infrastructure, gardens and buildings, reduce amenities and landscape values, and reduces incomes to rural households. Natural enemies, cats, dogs, foxes, large birds, snakes, and humans. So control measures, there's a few different control measures that they've got in place. So there's an integrated control approach combining different control methods. So, for example, destroying rabbit warrens, baiting, rabbit-proof fence, fumigation, trapping and shooting with land management practices is most effective. Destroying rabbits' homes, e.g. the warrens, is most effective method of long-term control. So you've got warren ripping. So ripping is successful because warrens can rarely be reopened. Rabbits are unable to recolonize these areas. Chase as many rabbits as possible inside the warren. Dogs can be used to drive rabbits into the warren before ripping starts. Use a tractor to timed, sharp-pronged implement, one tine or many, that rip through the warrens and collapse it. Large tractors and dozers are more appropriate for properties with many warrens, as they can move faster and wider. Rip all warrens within 1 kilometre of the permanent water. There you go. Harbour destruction. Where there is an abundant surface harbour, a high proportion of rabbits may live above ground rather than in the underground warrens. Rabbits can make homes in windrows, dense shrubs, blackberries, lantana, old machinery. To eliminate above-ground breeding areas, you may need to burn windrows and log piles, remove weeds through chemical and physical control, remove objects from the paddock. So removing harbour may expose warrens underneath, which also need to be ripped. Poisoning and baiting. Baiting alone is not an effective way to eradicate the rabbit population. Rabbits can also become bait shy, so that this method becomes less effective over time. Ideally, baiting is best used either before ripping fumigation to reduce the population or after ripping and fumigation as a mop-up. Baiting works best when rabbits are not breeding. That doesn't sound very pleasant, does it? 1080 sodium fluorocate. The use of 1080 is subject to regulations control set down by the Health, Drugs and Poisons Regulation in 1996 and can only be supplied by the proof of DAF or local government officer for the purpose of controlling invasive animals. Your local biosecurity officer or local government office should be able to assist you. Pre-feeding is required when using 1080 use because rabbits will not only readily take new feed, poison-free bait should be laid at least 3 times over a 1-week period. Poison bait is over 1 week before the poison bait is laid. 1080 impregnated carrot baits are the most common form of bait used. Then you've got pindine and fumigation. And then biological control. So they introduced myxomatosis and rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus. It needs to be incorporated into the management strategy with other control techniques. Rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus, also known as rabbit calicivirus virus. Yeah, I pronounced that wrong, I'm sure. RHDV is a virus specific to rabbits, which works by infecting the lining of the throat, lungs, gut, and liver. RHDV relies primarily on direct rabbit-to-rabbit contact to spread. Therefore, high rabbit numbers are needed before the control method will be effective. Well, myxomatosis is no longer produced as a laboratory strain, but field strains are still known to reoccur and affect rabbit populations. Trapping is extremely labour-intensive and requires a skilled operator to set the traps and successfully capture the rabbits. Then you've got cage traps. Has a lever that closes the cage when the rabbit steps onto it. Rabbits are lured into the cage with bait, usually diced carrot. Traps need to be disabled and left open for 2 to 3 nights with the bait leading into the cage. This entices rabbits to enter the trap. Can be set once the trap has been consumed. Trail of bait until all the way into the trap. Traps should be checked and emptied regularly, usually 2 times per night. Then you've got the barrel traps and the exclusion fencing. Okay. Built to keep rabbits out of particular areas, appropriate for small, high-value areas that require protection. Fully fenced areas will only remain rabbit-free if all rabbits are removed from the enclosed area after fencing, and fence is regularly maintained and checked for holes. Rabbit-proof fence should be made of wire mesh netting, 40 mil or smaller, and at least 90 mil high. 900 mil high, sorry. Netting should also be buried to a depth of at least 150 millimeter. Gates into fenced area also need to be rabbit-proof. Electric fencing is cheaper alternative, but is not complete physical barrier and is also prone to damage from other pest animals and stock. Shooting. Shooting is most useful when used to mop up after a control method such as ripping. For best results, shoot when rabbits are active. This is usually early mornings, late afternoons, or nights. Best and most economical firearm is the .22 caliber rifle. If your property is within the urban area, you will need to comply with local government regulations and Police Powers Responsibilities Act 2000, which restrict the use of firearms. So, legal requirements. So rabbit is a restricted invasive animal under the Biosecurity Act 2014. It must not be kept, moved, fed, given away, sold, or released into the environment without a permit. The Act requires everyone to take all reasonable and practical steps to minimise the risk associated with the invasive plants and animal under their control. This is called General Biosecurity Obligation. At a local level, each local government must have biosecurity plans to cover invasive plants and animals in its area. This plan may include actions to take on certain species. Some of these actions may be required under local laws. Contact your local government for more information. So there's heaps more information there. Yes. Queensland don't like rabbits. They don't like rabbits at all. So I'll leave this link up for the Lockyer Valley as well. Leave that in the chat. Now, I said I was going to show those fact sheets on the rabbits. Okay, so, and these fact sheets are all on the Lockyer Valley website. So is it a rabbit or a hare? Now this was something that I always wondered in Eagleby because we had hares. We definitely had hares. we had some big bunnies. Actually, looking at them made me think, Bugs Bunny's not a bunny. Bugs Bunny is a hare. But that's my opinion. So you got the little European rabbit, and this is the European hare. So European rabbit with the tail up. European hare has the tail down, apparently. So wild rabbits and hares were both introduced into Australia in the mid-1800s. Both are introduced species and established in southeast Queensland. Rabbits are a declared pest animal because of their impact and potential impact upon primary production and the natural environment. Affected landholders must take reasonable steps to remove rabbits from their property. Hares are not declared species, and there is no requirement to control hares. Rabbits are smaller than hares, but often dominate them to force hares out. Rabbits and hares are different species and do not interbreed. Hares don't make good pets, though, apparently. They don't domesticate well, just as a little bit of trivia. It is important to be able to distinguish between the two species. So, here again, we've got the little rabbit with his tail up and the little hare with his tail down. And that again apparently is the tail down. That looks like it's up more than down. But anyway, origins. Both are not native to Australia. They originate from Europe or South Europe. So pest status. Oh dear. Rabbits are a Class 2 declared pest animal. In Queensland, hares are not declared. Responsibility of control. It's the landholder's responsibility, and no control is required. Average body length. A rabbit is 40 centimetres, hare is 55. Typical colour is grey. Of rabbits, and hares are golden brown. The ears on a rabbit apparently are relatively short, and the hair has relatively longer and distinct black tips. Kind of interesting. Looks like a black tip to me. I'm not sure that this description's all that good. For anyone that's got rabbits overseas, I'd love to hear your comments. So the rabbits have got a relatively short hind legs, and hares have a relatively long hind leg. Tail position when disturbed. So the rabbit will lift the tail up. White tail flashed as alarm signal. And the hare, the tail will be held down with a dark tail seen. Interesting. So shelters. Now this is a big one, and this is part of why I understand that rabbits are a much bigger problem than hares. Their shelters for a rabbit is an underground burrow or under harbour, whereas a hare is underground nests in the long grass. So rabbits will dig holes, which can also cause problems to livestock, so they can twist their ankles in them, whereas hares don't do that. And they also have smaller litter sizes too, looking at this. So a rabbit's litter size can be 4 to 7, hare is only 2 to 3. So yes, social organisation, rabbits will live in groups, and apparently hares lead solitary lives except for when breeding. So there you go. There's a little bit of information on the difference between a hare and a rabbit. I'm not sure if I'm certain on the difference. I mean, they look fairly different. Those ears don't look that much longer than those, but they look like they're standing up a lot more. But anyway, so let's look at the next fact sheet. That's a lot of information there. And I think we actually went through a lot of that already. Rabbits prefer to eat soft, short, succulent plants such as grasses and herbs. I think one took out my tomato plant the other day. So yes, interesting. Wild rabbits rarely survive past 6 years of age. Bit of interesting trivia. Keeping rabbits as pets. Can I have a pet rabbit? It's a restricted invasive animal. So as much as this little guy looks cute, he's a danger to society. Rabbits in Australia are the most destructive agricultural and environmentally introduced animals pest, costing up to $1 billion annually. They cause severe land degradation, soil erosion, threaten the survival of many rare and endangered native species. Domestic rabbits and European wild rabbits are the same species and readily interbreed. Escaped and released pet rabbits have the potential to form new wild populations within a rabbit-free area. A significant proportion of feral rabbits in the area of Sydney and Tweed Heads are the result of released or escaped pet rabbits. And rabbits are rather difficult to contain, from what I understand. So yes. Can I get a permit for a pet rabbit? A permit cannot be issued for keeping a pet rabbit of any variety for a private purpose. A permit to keep a domestic rabbit in Queensland can only be approved if the animal is being kept for an approved purpose. Certain forms of public entertainment, e.g. magic show and circuses, and scientific research purposes. What if it's in a secure enclosure and desexed? It is often suggested that rabbits should be allowed as a pet if they have been desexed and registered, although desexed and contained rabbits pose minimal risk to the environment and agriculture. There are practical obstacles involved for the mandatory desexing of privately owned animals. Trials elsewhere have not demonstrated that the desexing and registering of pets have been effective in reducing unwanted pet populations. Mandatory desexing will also be difficult to enforce and costly to implement. Bunnies. Bunnies. Bit of damage there to crops. There's my computer's going a bit slow tonight. Yes, there we go. Did we look at what to look for? Oh, yeah, now this is... Oh, sorry. This shows you what to look out for rabbits. Although I'm looking at these and going, it's just like goat poop. So rabbits seek two basic things: short green grass to eat and somewhere nearby to hide. So finding where the rabbits are living is an important first step. Rabbits leave telltale signs such as droppings, dung piles, scratchings in the soil surface and the burrows. So this is the diggies. Now it's interesting, I actually did see something like that in one of my garden beds. But I have little goat poops everywhere and they look just like that. So lots of scratching. I haven't noticed lots of scratching. Rabbit sign is often easiest to find in bare areas such as garden beds and sprayed areas under fence lines. Using a spotlight or powerful torch to look for rabbits at night can help estimate the number of rabbits present and show where they run and hide. The key to long-term rabbit control is to remove the places where rabbits are breeding. Landholders are well placed to inspect their own properties for the presence of rabbits. Most landholders know their property better than anyone else. Affected landholders must take reasonable steps to control the rabbits. So that is an entrance under objects and under the ground by the looks of it. This is an active burrow, fresh soil and tracks and pills. There you've got a disused burrow and a rabbit warren. There you go. Well, I hope you found that interesting and useful. Again, I've left the links in the chat and I will put them into the description as well. But yeah, that's basically it for today. I know there's a lot of calls for rabbits to be allowed in Queensland again, and most of this is by people that want them as pets. It's probably something that really needs to be seriously considered before they think about bringing that into action. They've tried to make it so that dogs and cats have to be registered, and that hasn't worked so well. You've still got a lot of wild cats, feral cats. You've still got a lot of cats that are not being desexed. You've still got a lot of animals that are being bred when they shouldn't be. I don't know that it's a good idea. I'm not a huge fan of extra regulations either. It's a challenge, and I can understand people in the city wanting to have rabbits and not really having a disconnect between how it's actually going to affect them. But especially at the moment in the Lockyer Valley, this area and the farmers have just had 4 years of drought and have been struggling to have enough water to actually water their crops. So prices of food is already going to go up from that perspective. They've also had a decrease in labour force due to the whole beer flu, which again is going to increase the cost of food. Morning, Cindy Squirrel. Thanks for popping in. It's lovely to see you. Just chatting a bit about the Queensland regulations on rabbits. They're actually illegal here in Queensland. So yes, as to whether or not they should be legalised or not, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not the one that has to make the regulations. And I know people accidentally have rabbits escape, and they can cause massive problems. And given our climatic conditions here, rabbits breed prolifically. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. And I've left the links, but feel free to continue the conversation in the comments. I'd love to hear what people say. Should the Queensland laws be changed? I know a lot of people that are homesteading in Queensland would love to be able to keep rabbits for meat. But again, they also have the problem of what happens if the rabbit gets out. Accidents happen. I just don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm not a huge fan of extra regulation and extra rules. It's just not one of my things. I think I'm a bit of a libertarian on that perspective. Anyway, I believe in small government. Don't want them controlling stuff. But it's all good. You have a great one. Thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bless you.